echoed. Clan cats always spend time grooming each other and sharing the news of the day, Whitestorm told him. We call it sharing tongues. It is a custom that binds the members of the clan together. The cats had obviously smelled Rusty's foreign scent, for their heads began to turn and stare curiously in his direction. Suddenly shy of meeting any cat's gaze directly, Rusty looked around the clearing. It was edged with thick grass, dotted with tree stumps and a fallen tree. A thick curtain of ferns and gorse shielded the camp from the rest of the woods. Over there, meowed Lionheart, flicking his tail towards an impenetrable-looking tangle of brambles, is the nursery, where the kits are cared for. Rusty swiveled his ears towards the bushes. He couldn't see through the knot of prickly branches, but he could hear the mewling of several kittens from somewhere inside. As he watched, a ginger she-cat squirmed out through a small gap at the front. That must be one of the queens, Rusty thought. A tabby queen with a distinctive black marking appeared around the bramble bush. The two she-cats exchanged a friendly lick between the ears before the tabby slipped inside the nursery, murmuring to the squealing kits. The care of our kits is shared by all of our queens, meowed Lionheart. All cats serve the clan. Loyalty to the clan is the first law in our warrior code, a lesson you must learn quickly if you wish to stay with us. Here comes Blue Star, meowed Whitestorm, sniffing the air. Rusty sniffed the air too, and was pleased that he was able to recognise the scent of the grey she-cat a moment before she appeared from the shadow of a large boulder that lay beside them at the head of the clearing. He came, Blue Star purred, addressing the warriors. Whitestorm replied. Lionheart was convinced he would not. Rusty noticed that the tip of Blue Star's tail twitched impatiently. Well, what do you think of him? She asked. He kept up well on the return journey, despite his puny size, Whitestorm admitted. He certainly seemed strong for a kitty pet. So is it agreed? Blue Star looked at Lionheart and Whitestorm. Both cats nodded. Then I shall announce his arrival to the clan. Blue Star leaped up on a boulder and yowled. Let all those cats old enough to catch their own prey join here beneath the high rock for a clan meeting. Her clear call brought all the cats trotting towards her, emerging like liquid shadows from the edges of the clearing. Rusty stayed where he was, flanked by Lionheart and Whitestorm. The other cats settled themselves below the high rock and looked expectantly up at their leader. Rusty felt a rush of relief as he recognised Greyfur's thick grey fur among the cats. Beside him sat a young tortoiseshell queen, her black-tipped tail tucked neatly over small white paws. A large dark grey tabby crouched behind them, the black stripes on his fur looking like shadows on a moonlit forest floor. When the cats were still, Blue Star spoke. ThunderClan needs more warriors, she began. Never before have we had so few apprentices in training. It has been decided that ThunderClan will take an outsider to train as a warrior. Rusty heard indignant mutterings erupt among the clan cats, but Blue Star silenced them with a firm yowl. I have found a cat who is willing to become an apprentice of ThunderClan. Lucky to become an apprentice, caterwauled a loud voice above the ripple of shock that spread between the cats. Rusty craned his neck and saw a pale tabby cat standing up and glaring defiantly at their leader. Blue Star ignored the tabby and addressed all of her clan. Lionheart and Whitestorm have met this young cat, and they agree with me that we should train him with the other apprentices. Rusty looked up at Lionheart, then back at the clan, to find all eyes were on him now. His fur prickled, and he swallowed nervously. There was a silence for a moment. Rusty was sure they must all be able to hear his heart pulsing and smell his fear scent. Now a deafening crescendo of caterwauling rose from the crowd. Where does he come from? Which clan does he belong to? What a strange scent he carries. That's not the scent of any clan cat I know. Then one yowl in particular sounded above the rest. Look at his collar. He's a kitty pet. It was the pale tabby again. Once a kitty pet, always a kitty pet. This clan needs more wild-born warriors to defend it, not another soft mouth to feed. Lionheart bent down and hissed into Rusty's ear. That tabby is Longtail. He smells your fear. They all do. You must prove to him and all the other cats that your fear won't hold you back. But Rusty couldn't move. How could he ever prove to these fierce cats that he wasn't just a kitty pet? The tabby continued to jeer at him. Your collar is a mark of the 2 legs, and all that noisy jingling will make you a poor hunter at best, and at worst It will bring the two legs into our territory, looking for the poor lost kitty pet who fills the woods with his pitiful tinkling. All the cats howled in agreement. Longtail went on, well aware that he had the support of his audience. The noise of your treacherous bell will alert our enemies, even if your two legs stench doesn't. Lionheart hissed into Rusty's ear. Don't you back down from a challenge? Rusty still did not move, but this time he was trying to pinpoint Longtail's position. There he was, just behind the dusky brown queen. Rusty flattened his ears, narrowed his eyes, and hissing, leaped through the startled cats to fling himself onto his tormentor. Longtail was completely unprepared for Rusty's attack. He staggered sideways, losing his footing on the hard-baked earth. Filled with rage and desperate to prove himself, Rusty dug his claws deep into the tabby's fur and sank in his teeth. No subtle rituals of swiping and boxing preceded this fight. The two cats were locked in a screaming, writhing tussle that flipped and somersaulted around the clearing at the heart of the camp. The other cat had to spring out of the way to avoid the screeching whirlwind of fur. As Rusty scratched and struggled, he was suddenly aware that he felt no fear, only exhilaration. Through the roaring of the blood in his ears, he could hear the cats around them wailing with excitement. Then Rusty felt his collar tighten around his neck. Longtail had gripped it beneath his teeth and was tugging and tugging, hard. Rusty felt a terrible pressure at his throat. Unable to breathe, he started to panic. He writhed and twisted, but each movement only made the pressure worse. Retching and gulping for air, he summoned up all his strength and tried to pull away from Longtail's grip. All of a sudden, with a loud snap, he was free. Longtail tumbled away from him. Rusty scrambled to his paws and looked around. Longtail was crouching 3 tails length away, and dangling from Longtail's mouth, Rusty saw his collar, mangled and broken. At once, Bluestar leapt down from the high rock and silenced the crowd with a thunderous caterwaul. Rusty and Longtail remained fixed to the spots, gasping for breath. Clumps of fur hung from their ruffled coats. Rusty could feel a cut stinging above his eye. Longtail's left ear was badly torn, and blood dripped down his lean shoulders onto the dusty ground. They stared at each other, their hostility not yet spent. Bluestar stepped forward and took the collar from Longtail. She placed it on the ground in front of her and meowed. This newcomer lost his 2-leg collar in a battle for his honour. StarClan has spoken its approval. This cat, released from the hold of his 2-legs owner, is free to join ThunderClan as an apprentice. Rusty looked at Bluestar and solemnly nodded his acceptance. He stood up and stepped forward into a shaft of sunshine, welcoming the warmth on his sore muscles. The pool of light blazed bright on his orange pelt, making his fur glow. Rusty lifted his head proudly and looked at the other cats that surrounded him. This time no cat argued or jeered. He had shown himself worthy in a battle. Bluestar approached Rusty and placed the shredded collar on the ground in front of him. She touched his ear with her nose. You look like a brand of fire in this sunlight, she murmured. Her eyes flashed briefly, as if her words had more meaning than Rusty knew. You have fought well. Then she turned to her clan and announced, From this day forward, until he has earned his warrior name, this apprentice will be called Firepaw, in honour of his flame-coloured coat. She stepped back, and with the other cats, waited for his next move. Without hesitating, Rusty turned and kicked dust and grass over his collar, as though burying his dirt. Longtail growled and limped out of the clearing towards a fern-shaded corner. The cats split into groups, murmuring to each other excitedly. Hey, Firepaw! Rusty heard Greypaw's friendly voice behind him. Firepaw! A thrill of pride surged through him at the sound of his new name. He turned to greet the grey apprentice with a welcoming sniff. Great fight, Firepaw, mewed Greypaw, especially for a kitty pet. Longtail is a warrior, although he only finished his training 2 moons ago. That scar you left on his ear won't let him forget you in a hurry. You spoiled his good looks, that's for sure. Thanks, Greypaw, Firepaw replied. He put up quite a fight, though. He licked his front paw and began to wipe clean the deep scratch that stung his eye. As he washed, he heard his new name echoing among the meows of the other cats. Firepaw! Hey, Firepaw! Welcome, young Firepaw! Firepaw closed his eyes for a moment and let the voices wash over him. Good name, too, Greypaw mewed approvingly, jolting him awake. Firepaw looked around. Where did Longtail creep off to? I think he was headed towards Spotted Leaf's den. Greypaw tipped his head towards the fern-closed corner Longtail had disappeared into. She's our medicine cat. Not bad looking either. Younger and a lot prettier than most. A low yowl next to the two cats stopped Greypaw mid-speech. They both turned, and Firepaw recognised the powerful grey tabby who had sat behind Greypaw earlier. Darkstripe, mewed Greypaw, dipping his head respectfully. The sleek Tom looked at Firepaw for a moment. Luckily your collar snapped when it did. Longtail is a young warrior, but I can't imagine him being beaten by a kitty pet. He spat the word kitty pet scornfully, and then turned and stalked off. Now Darkstripe, Greypaw hissed to Firepaw under his breath, is neither young nor pretty. Firepaw was about to agree with his new friend when he was interrupted by a warning yowl from an old grey cat at the edge of the clearing. Small Ear smells trouble, Greypaw meowed, immediately alert. Firepaw barely had time to look around before a young cat crashed through the bushes and into the camp. He was skinny, and apart from the white tip of his long thin tail, jet black from head to toe. Greypaw gasped. That's Ravenpaw. Why is he alone? Where's Tigerclaw? Firepaw looked at Ravenpaw staggering across the floor of the clearing. He was panting heavily. His coat was ruffled and dusty, and his eyes were wild with fear. Who are Ravenpaw and Tigerclaw? Firepaw asked Greypaw, as several other cats raced past him to meet the new arrival. Ravenpaw's an apprentice. Tigerclaw's his mentor, Greypaw explained quickly. Ravenpaw went out with Tigerclaw and Redtail at a surprise at sunrise, on a mission against RiverClan, the lucky furball. Redtail, Firepaw echoed, thoroughly confused by all these names. Bluestar's deputy, hissed Greypaw. But why on earth has Ravenpaw come back alone? He added to himself. He lifted his head to listen as Bluestar stepped forward. Ravenpaw. The she-cat spoke calmly, but a look of worry clouded her blue eyes. The other cats drew back, curling their lips with anxiety. What happened? Bluestar jumped onto the high rock and looked down at the trembling cat. Speak, Ravenpaw! Ravenpaw was still struggling for breath, and his sides heaved fitfully while the dust around him turned red with blood, but he still managed to scramble up onto the high rock and stand beside Bluestar. He turned to the crowd of eager faces that surrounded him and summoned enough breath to declare, Redtail is dead.